What's up, everybody? Thralls Miller here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you.
Who knew?
So, one that was definitely on our radar because we reviewed their last one and it was really fucking good, was the newest album from Gaerea, Mirage. This comes out on the 23rd of September as well on Season of Mist Records. This band formed in 2016 in Portugal. This is their third full-length overall. I'm a fan of pretty much everything they've released. They look creepier than hell with the shrouds and painted arms, and like they make sure they don't look very human.
I won't say they're theatrical, but I will say that their presence is just like, ugh.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of unsettling. Like, if you want truly unsettling, watch the playthrough of their last album on YouTube.
Yeah.
It is literally just them dropping the needle on the record and sitting down on a couch in front of you and just looking at you. Or at least I think they're looking at you because they're wearing those fucking shrouds. It's creepy. But we were really looking forward to this. We heard some of the singles. It sounded awesome. This band plays a very atmospheric, lush style of black metal. It's haunting. It's engaging, it's kind of depressive, it's triumphant, it's melodic, it can be brutal at times.
It can be beautiful at times, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and we're back for more of it. And right away, like I feel like this album is even bigger than the last one. I was a big fan of Limbo. Limbo is a killer album. I think their debut, Unsettling Whispers, is possibly an even better album.
And I gotta go back and listen to that because I've never heard it.
It's amazeballs. But this one, immediately it just feels different. It opens up very clean with the song Memoir. Like very dreary, haunting, clean melodies. There's like sweeping synths. You hear some quote unquote unsettling whispers. Yeah, I know, it ties in. And then kind of just starts building into these, well, kind of what you expect from this band. These giant, like tremolo riff driven blast beat sections. The vocals on here, and this is kind of across the board, desperate, anguished,
pleading,
tortured. There's such emotion behind them, and it's mostly just growls. Like occasionally you get some like slight like croons and spoken words and whispers.
I mean, you get screams, but there are a lot more growls though than I think there were in the previous album, 100%.
But it's that desperation. Like you can feel like this kind of like makes it a more emotional listen. And where they sit in the mix is like they're kind of slightly back in the mix. And I don't know, it just sounds like someone just pleading behind the band.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, not to turn it down because this deserves to be played loud, but I don't know, definitely going through some shit.
In here, too, there's tons of dynamic, which I wouldn't state that the band lacked overall, but it's kind of minus that constant drone that Limbo had. I mean, you get blast beats, you get groovy sections, you get quiet sections, you get cymbal work. I mean, there's a whole lot more going on that add to the overall giganticness of these songs.
Yeah, that was something I noticed immediately too, because Limbo, you know, it definitely had some dynamics to it, and the songwriting was really solid on it, but it did drone a lot. And that's kind of the style of, you know, like more atmospheric black metal. You know, it's kind of like Magua, like a little bit, like in terms of just like droning tremolo riffs to generate that atmosphere. But this breaks up with like quieter moments, like almost kind of like post-metal song structure.
Oh, yeah. Russian Circles.
Cult of Luna,
yep.
Stuff like that, except played, you know, more black metal centric. And this does get like very black metal-y, like straightforward. Songs like Salve, Ebb, and Mantle both have like very just straightforward, cold black metal sections, very reminiscent of bands like Dissection, Sacramentum, even Necrophobic. But the thing that kind of separates that up is the fact that this band gets like really riffy at times too.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not afraid to throw in like, you know, a clever breakdown, a more atmospheric section that isn't necessarily driven by tremolo riffs, and the wild drum work on here.
Holy shit. I'm tired for this man. Like, tired. He never stops moving. I like how he's the one to transition and the rest of the band follows, because sometimes you get like guitar leads that do it, but this guy, buttery smooth transitions and just frantic. He just never stops moving. The fact that everything's crystal clear on here really adds to everything. The production, lush, huge, dark, grim, but as clear as, you know, looking into clear waters in someplace nicer than, you know, Ohio.
Yeah, well, I mean,
this is definitely not the Great Lakes.
Yeah, no, we kind of dump a lot of shit in our
This is like
water.
looking into like Hawaiian waters or something. Just like, ooh, it's clear.
Just so you can see the shark before it gnaws your dick off. Because that's what they do.
And that's why I don't get in the ocean.
I saw it on National Geographic. It's totally a true story. Like, in terms of that drum transition thing, one of the songs I really heard that on was Mantle. There's a section, actually towards the end, giant, epic fucking melody, and there are a lot of ascending melodies in here. So, as depressive as this sounds, there are a lot of, like, big, triumphant moments on here. But the drums transitioning, there's a section where it's playing this very epic melody, and underneath it, the drums are doing different things every so, often in terms of like the measures. Well, the riff maintains sort of a constant sort of drone on it, but the fact that it switches like accents on the blast beats or switches over to a groovy rhythm, that breaks up. And that's a cool thing across this entire album is, it doesn't hang on to stuff as much as the previous album.
Yeah, there's not that constant drone. And it lets the riffs, when they do occur, like in Salve, because you get this big, giant, like, breakdown section, and it's not typically what you think about a giant breakdown. There are some chugs in it, but it lets all the riffs breathe before it transitions out, versus just a droning through.
And blast beats, of course, black metal, that's, kind of a thing across the board. This has noticeably less blast beats than the last one, too. And, of course, we're going to keep comparing it to the last one because we reviewed it.
Sure.
But again, breaking up with groovier sections. The song Deluge is actually more of like sort of a doomy stomp at first. The broken down riff, the drum accents, it has this sort of foreboding, doomy feeling to it. But at the same time, with the lush atmosphere in it and all the sweeping synths that are settled nice in the background, it almost kind of sounds like a combination of like, Gojira and Devin Townsend at the same time.
And I definitely heard that.
It's very lush. It's just such a huge sound to it, but again, it feels cold and kind of like isolated and dark at the same time. This album has like such an interesting vibe to it. Like, it's definitely depressive. Like, there's a lot of just anguish vocals, dark, dreary riffs, but at the same time, there's a lot of ascending melodies. Like, it's depressive, but it doesn't wallow. It gets up and moves on and is trying to get through its fucking day and moving on to the next depressing thing. But at least, I don't know, it doesn't stay stagnant at all.
It adds a lot of earworms, too. I mean, they're not overpowering, but you get into songs like Arson. There's a part in the middle where it's got this weird kind of like off-time atonal melody that goes behind just a straightforward drum groove. And it just adds to like, oh, that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's kind of cool. And they break it up a lot. It's not just blast beats. There's a lot of groove. There's a lot of atonal melodies. There's a whole bunch of shit going on, but it doesn't sound so, jam-packed in there that it's chaotic or that you get lost at times. Like, they make it so it flows with the ear and the brain, too.
I think because, like, the scope of this album, it just feels bigger. That it just feels like there's room for all that stuff.
Yep.
And then, honestly, it's not that much extra stuff. Like, we're not talking about, like, giant string sections and horn sections, and we gotta have, like, 14 different drummers
it's
on
not
this.
It's not like when we did the White Ward review when there was so much going on, it was insane.
This actually, it's mostly done with just the, instruments and like some layered synths behind it. But it creates such a giant size atmosphere. And a subtle thing that I notice is it just has that right amount of reverb on the vocals and drums in particular. They sound very open. Like, wherever they recorded was a giant open, like, studio hall or something like that. And when this band does slow down to, like, like kind of a sludgier, doomier pace, it really kind of harks back to, like, early death doom, like, namely, like, the Peaceville stuff, My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost. The song Ebb has this disgusting bending riff in one of its breakdowns, and the entire time I was listening to it, like, I felt like if you added an actual violin on top of that, this would pretty much be a My Dying Bride song. And I don't know, I kind of like the fact that that was something that really didn't play up on the last album either. It's like, slower, more doomy moments. It was, again, more about that tremolo and blast and creating that just caustic, depressive atmosphere. I like that this album is finding different ways to, explore atmosphere.
To convey that atmosphere, yeah. Overall, it is dark and dreary. I like how they all the time seem to pepper in these gorgeous melodic breaks, just super pretty, like there might be a glimmer of hope. Like in the song Mantle. In the very beginning of Mantle, there may be some sun peeking through the clouds. Now, nope, because then it gets blasty and dark again, but it's kind of like a whole rush of emotions. It actually kind of is like going through depression.
Yeah. And this band knows how to put a crescendo at the end of a song. Like,
yep.
They build up to glorious heights. Honestly, like, the one that really stood out to me was the last track, Laud.
Yes.
And the fact that it is almost entirely bright. Like, everything about it feels bright, shining, epic. The riffs are a little bit, I guess, more major chordy, but I don't know, like, the whole vibe of it, it feels triumphant. Like, you already went through all the depression. This is you coming out the other side of it, like, all right, I think I'm okay.
Because even the vocals go from pleading to more of like a, haha, fuck you, I won.
Conquering.
Like, yeah, you can hear it, like, all right, no, fuck you.
But at the same time, again, the whole flow of this album, it's very smooth.
Yes.
Actually, I wrote down it flows well. It's like canoeing down a river with your sleep paralysis demon. Just, kind of sitting back, chilling, maybe having a couple of beers. But yeah, the whole vibe of it, again, depressive, but I don't know, it feels like you're conquering over it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that kind of like, struck like an emotional chord with me, because that's something you want to hear. Like, I listen to a lot of fucking like seriously depressing shit when it comes down to like, Death Doom and Funeral Doom and shit like that.
Depressing, dark, evil, fucking hopeless, caustic,
And generally all that shit ends hopeless, too.
Right,
This actually ended really brightly. And that song really showed off, again, more songwriting dynamics, like borderline proggy in spots.
Yeah, I mean, I compared it to Enslaved,
Yep.
Mastodon at times. It had kind of like a prog structure to it in a lot of parts.
A lot of this was pretty much for me, like, finding that sweet spot between having that cold, dark vibe of black metal, but also having some really nice melodic hooks. And, again, kind of pushing the songwriting in different directions. I don't know, it just makes for a very engaging, immersive album. And it's trance-inducing, too. Like, you have moments where you kind of get locked on 1 second, because there are some spots that kind of do drone on a little bit in terms of, like, static blast beats, tremolo riffs. But the fact that it breaks it up, it can pull you out of that trance and get you hooked on another section.
Yep.
That was kind of an issue I had with Limbo, whereas, like, sometimes some parts kind of hung on a little too long. This one, I feel like it's more deliberately paced.
Yes.
Like, there's...
They definitely mapped out these songs more. Like, they said, okay, all right, grab you, and put you back in, grab you, like, and that's what they did.
Probably not exactly that.
Probably not exactly
Probably
that.
not
They're probably not
exactly that.
exactly grabbing. That's, the felony, right?
Well, as long as you put them back in and they don't press charges.
Right. I guess if you do it, gently, but never mind.
This is why he can't ride public transit, as what he's explaining right now. Grabbing, pulling, pushing them back in.
I mean, the buses are rough in the city here.
True.
Toledo's a crazy town.
Full of crazy people that shouldn't be riding public transit.
Not at all. I don't anymore. So, overall, I really dug this record. I mean, I kind of figured I would anyway, because I really loved the last release. Back when I was first starting to get into black metal, this band is one of the bands that I was introduced to. And I thought, well, holy fuck, these guys are good. And this record, I think, is even better than the last one. And I remember I rated the last one pretty high. A very engaging listen. There are so many things going on, but again, not so much going on that it's incredibly chaotic. I'm going to give this a 4.5. It was a brilliant listen. The lead-in track was great. They let it out correctly. And again, to have something that is so incredibly dark and cold and dismal and just like, ugh, to have it end on such a triumphant moment was even a greater kind of just slap to the face. The musicianship is incredible. The dynamic is great. There's definitely a whole lot more going on here than there once was. And the contrast between dark and light is played really well. Everything flows together. It's a great listen. I highly suggest you go out and get this album. Give this band a listen for sure. Take it away, Nick.
Man. All right. I'm pretty sure I gave Limbo a 4. I'm also going to give this one a 4. But this is a slightly higher 4 because I do think this is a better album than the last one. this sees them really just sort of expanding in terms of, musicality, songwriting.
Yep.
This is a very dynamic album, but it still packs all of the stuff that you already liked about this band if you've been listening to this band.
Sure.
Again, the contrast between bright, shining moments to dark, dreary moments is excellent in here. It keeps the album interesting. I like the more post-metal song structure to this. These songs are long, and they write these at a very deliberate pace. There's a lot of cool peaks and valleys in them, and peaks and valleys in the album in general. I don't know if the theme of this album is going through depression and, conquering it, becoming triumphant over it. I don't know if that's the theme, but that is the vibe on this. The constant soaring melodies on here just give you that vibe. I flat out love pretty much every aspect of this. The production's incredible. I love the desperate, pleading, anguished vocals. Drum work's insane. I like the very layered guitar work. Like this pretty much checks off most things I like about black metal. I'm generally more of a riffy black metal person, but the atmosphere in here helps, just push this and makes you get lost in it. I strongly recommend this album. If you have never heard this band before, I literally recommend everything they've released. Their debut EP is amazing. Unsettling Whispers, Limbo. Get that one and then get this one and listen to them all. Maybe not all in a row because that's a long day, and it is still fairly depressing. I'm not saying it's the most triumphant listen ever. Like you're going to go outside and go, I'm going to go conquer the day. You won't.
I'm going to stay in my bedroom and turn on Netflix and watch,
Yeah, and also by the time you're done listening to them, it'll be dark out. So, yeah. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Within that link, there's another link to our Patreon, but while you're at thrallsmetal.com, you can check out our stuff. We have t-shirts. We will eventually have more stuff in there. It's just sort of, figuring out shipping and what we're throwing in there. I feel like we're gonna have grenades. I keep everyone keeps thinking I'm joking about that, but believe me, when you see me on the news throwing Thralls
There's
grenades,
gotta be like an ATF thing involved with that. Like I feel like we have to have some special licensing that none of us
ass
have.
to face. That's not what that stands for.
No, it's not.
Anyway, Thralls grenades, they're definitely happening. There's no way they're not.
You heard it from him. I
agreed with me. Thank you so much. Anyway, he's complicit. Anyway, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. It's amazing to see this channel grow, and you guys are the fucking reason. This has been an insane journey, and we're working on 4 years of it.
It's creeping right around the corner.
Yeah.
December 18th, when this man turns older.
Anyway, we digress as usual. Thank you all so much once again, and we will catch you later.